people mistake results for relationship. This man preaches an effective revival, yet he is suicidal, which tells me that me being used by God does not mean I'm in alignment with him. My churchy people need to hear this.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's a channel where we find the true seek understanding and be the light. It's your boy Big Blue. Whew, man, Travis Greene is dropping the hammer. I need to go ahead and watch a little more of his sermons because it's interesting, the stuff that God is putting into his mouth. I wasn't expecting these type of words, these type of statements and references to and references to the Bible, which honestly is the big part that catches me off guard. So let's go ahead and jump into the video really quick and see what Travis Greene is talking about.
Shady people mistake results for relationship. This man preaches an effective revival, yet he is suicidal, which tells me that me being used by God does not mean I'm in alignment with him. My churchy people need to hear this. Just because God used you don't mean he approved your lifestyle. Oh, MG. I want every worship leader, every gospel artist, every Christian artist, please, every pastor, please hear the words that I'm saying. Just because God used you and it's effective does not mean he's pleased with you. Well, why would God use me? Because he has mercy for the people you're reaching. So there's people out here that'll go to heaven and people up here that'll go to hell. This is the Bible. The Bible says that people will stand before him and say, but Lord, Lord, didn't I cast out demons in your name? Lord, Lord, didn't I have conferences in your name? Lord, Lord, didn't I have best-selling books in your name? Lord, Lord, didn't I make CDs and DVDs in your name? He'll say, depart from me. I never knew you, you worker of iniquity, because you thought that I used you, that I approved you. Don't mistake results for relationship.
Don't mistake results for relationship. That's an interesting word. A lot of times we mistake results for relationships with God. A lot of times we think that, especially pastors, the way that they preach, the way that the word is being used means that there's that anointing that just is there. They are the approved proxy, third party. They are the approved bridge from the word that comes from God to them and to the congregation. What I mean by approved, as in like they are an elevated individual, when that's not true. Pastors are still human. They are just merely vessels doing God's work. Let's take a look and see what we got here. So, and it's interesting how he puts that. When we think about this, it happens today. Just because you heard a word, a lot of times people associate the word as, oh my gosh, this pastor is the guy that, help me get through this and help me get through that. No, it was God. It was God. God was just using the pastor to get to you. And it just so happened that the pastor is able to utilize the wisdom that he gets and then is blessed with the word so that he can go ahead and preach. Just like with the Apostle Paul going out to all the nations and preaching the gospel, he was already well equipped with the information of the word from the text, from the scriptures, for the messianic times, from Moses and the commandments and everything that God had given them in the past, and was able to kind of decipher, in a sense, the teachings of Jesus Christ. Not that much had to be too deciphered, but kind of keep it in clear mindset of the way that we are supposed to be living. And so pastors kind of have that same, not to the same degree as Paul or the apostles, but they're given that knowledge. And then when God fills them with the Spirit, they're able to utilize the knowledge that they get to give the word in a way that can be understood and that people can truly find Christ and become discipled and go out and seek more people to disciple. Now, when he says that just because now, and that's the interesting part before I get to all the people that's been used by God, but that was in alignment with him, as Travis Greene had mentioned. I have some reserves in regards to that statement, how he said that the pastor, he could preach a good word, this, that, and a third, but then he's suicidal. And that could be because of the misalignment with God. I can definitely understand the sentiment of pastors may not always be in alignment with God, because we've seen this in the past before, and we've seen this with plenty of other churches. There are churches, there are pastors, there are ministers, and all that. Even people like me that are given a word. Well, not to me because I know my faith, but that are given a word and it's spread out to other people, even if it's just something that's a thought that make them think about God and Jesus and the way that they're living. That doesn't mean that whoever it is that's given the message may be completely saved or is doing it out of good conscience. It may just be those situations where God is given a word and is going on to you. But in regards to that, whatever it is that they have going on in their lives, I don't really want to go in deep dive or I don't really want to go with the idea that, those that have suicidal thoughts and stuff like that are not in alignment with God. I can say, I can't even say that, because there's the mind is very dangerous, and the more that you allow yourself to be in isolation, and the more it's easy for you to fall into these deceptive thoughts, these sinful thoughts that God does not want us to even have. It's easy to get to that point, and in order to get out of that point, you really truly have to put your trust in God. And I will say that I was in a point in my life where a lot of intrusive thoughts kept coming in, to the point where I was inflicting self-harm on myself, and then also affecting the way that I interact with other people, or just, respond to certain things, because of the thoughts that was coming into my head, because of the anxieties, and thus allowing me or preventing me from progressing in life because of the thoughts that were coming into my head. But because I relied on Jesus, and I understood the truth, and I read the word, and I took the word as truth, I've been able to not completely remove the anxieties, but anytime those intrusive thoughts step foot into my mind, I'm ready to list out everything that contradicts whatever it is that those intrusive thoughts are trying to say about me, and walk it right out the door. And that's by God's grace that I'm able to do that. That's by Jesus' truth that I'm able to do that. Because I read the word, because I have a better understanding of the word, and because I hold true to the word. It's because of that. If it wasn't because of the word, if it wasn't because of Jesus, then I'd be a wreck. With everything that's been going on in my life lately, I would be a wreck. I will revert back to all of the sinful things that I did anytime when I was feeling some type of anxiety, anytime when I felt any type of stress. I will revert back to all those things without problem, because why else? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? So there's that part. I wonder if he meant that truly, but then that could also mean the alignment, depending on which we're referring to as alignment. Your alignment with God may not be there if these thoughts are constantly coming into your head. But I just don't know, guys. I've been in that realm, but I haven't been too far deep into that realm to where it's an everyday thing. But I do know that the thoughts did linger in me, and it was because of Jesus that I was able to get out of it. I didn't need no type of medication. It wasn't everything's just going to be good, or I need to progress with life. No, there was that burden that I had to let go of, and the understanding of the truth, and that everything that my mind tried to trick me into thinking, I had to immediately contradict it with the word, as I just said. Y'all let me know in the comment section how y'all feel in regards to that aspect of what he was saying. But going on to those that are not in alignment, there was definitely truth in that. Just because you were used by God does not mean that you are aligned with God. Here's a list of people in the Bible that God used that weren't aligned with him. Let's go with Pharaoh in Exodus. We already know the Pharaoh when it comes to Moses and departing the sea. God hardened his heart to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt in a way and a matter to which God can show his might to the Israelites by departing the sea. Because imagine if they just said, okay, you can go. They could have went any other direction. There's nothing that would have, told Moses, okay, we need to go across the sea. They're like, imagine we're just going around like God. Imagine you're just walking around because you're free now, and God tells you, all right, I need you to cross this sea. Most would have been like, we could just walk around it. But when you have no other choice, there's nothing else. And then there's guards and horses that's coming, stampeding, trying to get you. And you're like, God, what are we going to do now? And then God gives you the word, split the sea in half. And he did. But that was due to God hardening Pharaoh's heart. In Numbers 22-24, I think his name Balaam. I want to say Balaam, not Balaam, because Balaam is a different god. But essentially, he was a pagan prophet. He was a prophet that used specific motives, but God utilized him to speak to Balak, because Balak was trying to attack the Israelites and try to overrun the Israelites. But Balaam was used by God to tell Balak, do not touch them people. Do not touch them people, or you will be destroyed. Had no relationship with God. He didn't care for God, but God utilized him. And when we talk about the kings and the Philistines, how they were constantly used in response to Israel's rebellion, how God had given them the power to overcome the Israels because they decided to do other things. They had no meaning for God, but God did it anyways. God allowed them. God used them to judge to judge the Israelites in accordance to their misbehavings and turning away from God. Even when we talk about Samson, somebody who wasn't even too fond of God from the beginning and constantly turned away from him with his flesh and his pride, God still used him from the day of his birth, which is interesting. And we see this time and time again in the Old Testament. God had made a claim of what was going to happen, but he never specified how it was going to happen. So Samson, even though he wasn't in clear alignment with God, God from his birth had told his mother that he will be used to defeat the Philistines, and he did. So we see these situations time and time again. And here's an interesting thing. So I mentioned this to my friend group, and when it comes to the way that things are being taught, and this kind of ties the two together. This is Philippians 1:15 and 17 through 18. And then the next one is going to be from Matthew 7:21-23. Now, this part in Matthew is what Travis Greene was paraphrasing, kind of not really. But essentially, I think they definitely come together. And it's interesting because it's like this is thousands of years old and it still applies today. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Philippians 1:15 and then 17-18. Some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. The latter do it out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel. Paul and Timothy, I think they were in prison at this point. 17. The former proclaimed Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. This is crazy. This is crazy. And this goes back to another video that I did. I'm not sure if I posted that first or that first, but it was essentially just, I was mentioning how when it comes to churches, there are some churches that preaches light topics of encouragement, of, just holding on, just having health and just having faith in the word, and like truly like, just borderline motivational speakers. But then you have the more solid gospel teachings that we have by certain pastors, in which those that are light in the faith, those that are new in the faith, some of them may not be ready for it. It may be too much for them to take in. And we see literally verse 18, what then? Only in that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice. That just sounds like to me, they're saying that even regardless of what is being sent, if Christ is being preached and the word is being spread, it's essentially saying what people be saying about content creation, whether it's good comments or bad comments, good views or bad views, it's all views and it's all benefiting to the one person. So regardless of regardless of what it's saying, based off of what I'm seeing here, regardless of if somebody is proclaiming Christ out of selfish ambitions, out of rivalry and envy with somebody else, Christ is still being preached. And as long as it's the truth, at the end of the day, whether the way that they do it, Paul takes rejoice in that. And it's crazy. And then to go back to Matthew 7:21-23, as I was mentioning before, and this is the tough one. This is kind of a response to that. So there's the idea that regardless of what happens, as long as Christ is being preached, then we can take rejoice in it at the end of the day, because the word of Christ is being spread out. Now, there's times where things can be corrected, if not, which is good. And then there's times where if the actual preaching is correct, then that's even better. But then in Matthew, for those that do preach for their own selfish ambitions, here we go. Matthew 7:21-23. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many works in your name? This is what Travis Greene was alluding to. And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. This is crazy. It's interesting. We see in Philippians that God's will be done, that the word of Christ will be spread one way or another. And then at the end of the day, depending on the individual that was spreading the word, where his heart lies, and if he was truly following God's command and what Jesus commanded us to do and the way that we were supposed to live, then he will be judged at that point, at the gates. Jésus. Whoosh. That's my understanding of the word, guys. I mean, if I'm misunderstanding anything, y'all let me know in the comment section. But as always, y'all go ahead and read the word yourselves. Don't just take my word for it. I mean, we read the word, so, y'all let me know what y'all think. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.